It goes on, but very, very rocky for the President of the United States. George, he's got four names. Herbert Walker Bush, as the latest CNN poll shows that Bill Clinton has all been but elected the next President of the United States. Bush down by some respects as much as 30 points in the polls. 57 to 27. The question raised this morning in a USA Today interview, put frightfully and dearly at George Bush's doorstep. Mr. Bush, should you throw down the gauntlet, turn the mantle over to a younger candidate, and give the Republican Party a chance to win in 1992? Let them nominate a Jack Kemp or a Robert Dole or a voice of clean republicanism. And I begin my show this morning by asking you the same question, of course, with the typical enticements that WFTL is so wont to throw on our doorstep. This time, gift certificates to DeSalvo's and the Grapevine Gourmet Shop at 256 South University Drive in Plantation. No, I'm not asking you to put George Bush's name or picture on the $1 bill. But I am asking you to begin our conversation this morning at 733-1400 in Broward, 1-800-874-3454 in Dade and Palm Beach, and star FTL on your Bell South mobility line. With the gnawing question facing the Republicans as they move towards Houston to convene in the next 2 weeks. I believe it is the 17th when they gather. The gnawing question, folks, should Bush quit? What do you think? Should George Bush throw down the gauntlet and draw a line in the sand and go mano to mano with Bill Clinton? Or should he just say, I have been the Herbert Hoover of the 1980s. I am a failed and unsuccessful president. The economy has been ravaged. Unemployment is higher than ever before. Economic woes plague this country like nothing ever has since 1929, around about October 10th. I am the pilot of this ship. The good ship is sinking. I can go down with it, but you know what? I'm an old anachronistic pilot. I don't know the newer methods and ways and ideas that have evolved over the past few years. And there's a younger captain on board who might be able to get us out of this mess, who might be able to right the ship and steer it afloat before it sinks. Do I, like a prideful, boastful captain, watch the ship sink and everybody drown? Or do I turn to this young man and say, Admiral, you come here. You take your best shot. I have not been able to succeed. Well, that's the question for you out there, ladies and gentlemen. Should George Bush quit? Should George Bush join the ranks of Mr. Perot? Should he resign and turn over the Republican nomination to a new candidate, one who has not been stained by an indelible mark of a foreign debacle that has left the Nazi-like leader Saddam Hussein in power, of an international AIDS crisis which he knows nothing and speaks about less? Should we continue to let Mr. Bush handle our domestic policies, which are anything but domestic? What are your thoughts? 733-1400 in Broward, 1-800-874-3454 in Dade and Palm Beach, and star FTL on your Bell South mobility line. It's either that or we let Pearlie and Florence call in back to back, one after another. I think it's a good topic to talk about. I think it's a fascinating topic to talk about. You see, Steve Kane, he might even like this topic. Now, it's not easy to get Steve to like a topic. Steve, folks, you know what Steve might do? He has announced that he wants to call the gay show Fairy Tales. And he thinks that it's going to get people upset so that they'll protest it, so that they'll get angry about it. We won't We will ignore it. We will bypass it. We will not fall into Steve's programming clap, okay? However, as far as Mr. Bush goes, I think he needs to do what Lyndon Johnson did on March 31st, 1968, when Mr. Johnson turned to the members of Congress and the American public and said, I shall not seek and will not accept the nomination of my party for a second term in the White House. He did that in the hope of stemming the tide of divisiveness that was ripping apart the Democratic Party in an effort to see the Democrats capture the White House in 1968. And but for Bobby Kennedy's assassination and Martin Luther King's shooting, who is to tell what might have happened, even with Gene McCarthy's campaign? But Hubert Humphrey was to beat Gene McCarthy, first in the primaries, but lose to Richard Nixon in an ever-so-close election. In the year that Mayor Richard Daley told the Chicago police that they have permission to shoot when they see the whites of their eyes, referring to some of the demonstrators protesting at the Democratic National Convention. I'll never forget the Oliphant cartoon in Newsday showing Mr. Daley rushing to a fire in a Chicago park, carrying not an extinguisher, but a blowtorch, so he could fan the flames of anger and hate and disdain. But the day today is August 5th, 1992. Where were you when Marilyn Monroe died? Kind of two questions I want to run by you and see if you know. Let's get a 30-year perspective on our lives, on our existence, on where we were 30 years ago today. You see, now if I just began and said to you to tell me where you were 30 years ago, you might never remember. Oh, you might say something like, well, I'm 65 now and I was 35 and I was working at National Shoe Shops at Kings Plaza in Brooklyn, New York. Or maybe you could say, oh, I was working in the Garment District, New York, in 1963. Right now I'd be getting up and heading towards the Rosedale train station stop at the Long Island Railroad. You might say something like that. But you wouldn't remember specifically or exactly or directly. You would not be able to flash back to any given moment on a specific day 30 years ago unless you had a road mark, a land map, an atlas of the day. We are given the atlas by the stunning announcement early in the morning of August 5th, 1963 or 62, whenever the heck it was, that Marilyn Monroe had died, purportedly of an overdose of sleeping pills, I think it said back then. Well, here we are 30 years later, folks. We're here. We're survivors. We made it. Through all the frustrations and failures of the days and decades, through all the relationships that soured too quickly and the marriages that did not make it, from the schools we did not graduate and the universities we did, from the decades and days that have passed and surmounted the barrier of time, we have made it here today. And now I ask you to step back for a moment and ask yourself, where were you 30 years ago when you heard Marilyn Monroe had died? Is that a significant enough event in American history? Was it distinguishing as a landmark so that anybody out there recalls where they were when Marilyn Monroe died? What they were doing when they heard the announcement? What their sense of disbelief or shock was? Well, that's one way we're going today, 733-1400 in Broward. And the other way, hey, George Bush, should he quit? What do you think? Is he already beaten, and is he only bringing the Republican Party down to a sure disaster? And should George Bush think about getting out and turning the mantle over to a younger, more responsive force, and just going on and playing statesman? After all, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the dude is almost 70 years old as it is. 26 minutes after 6 a.m., this is the Norm Kent Show. And is anybody out there at all listening today? I mean, I've come up with 2 great topics here. And as the deputies at BSO would say, they are arresting. Speaking of which, did they catch that guy that escaped? Oh, yeah, they did catch the guy that escaped from the courthouse, the prisoner. We have, separate from this issue, a pretty big day here at FTL. Alan Turl's the author of AIDS in the Law. He'll be my guest at 8 o'clock in about an hour and a half. He's written a layman's guide for non-lawyers, and he should be able to give you a lot of information that you don't already have. Exploring the fatal attraction concept with Dr. Leland Hello will be the topic of Steve Kane's show, Life at the Border. I don't know what that means. Two people that are auditioning for the gay show, which we'll call Pride Lines, not Fairy Tales, will be on the Gary Daniels show today. In lieu of Gary Daniels, he will be off. That will be Ivan Bernstein. Ivan Bernstein is up there in the upper echelon of potential candidates, so you should listen to him. And Bob Kuntz, internationally known for his Cure AIDS Now Foundation and alternative lifestyles that he's proposed in Miami Beach. Okay, we have 1 or 2 calls, which is disappointing, but because he is our first caller, where do you live, Ray?
Up in Pompano.
Pompano. Well, you've won a $10 gift certificate to a nice little gourmet shop in Plantation called the Gourmet Shop. That's Grapevine.
That's great.
All right. So what are your thoughts on either of those issues?
No, we certainly don't need another Hoover, that's for sure. We're bad enough shape without one. About your gay show, I don't know. I think that Steve has the right idea. If you make it too serious a thing, there's going to be a little resentment.
Well, what about a simple phrase like Pride Lines?
Well, that's getting into a little serious, that's a serious label there.
Well, don't you think Fairy Tales is really demeaning and insulting?
Well, it's less serious, you know. I mean, it's
yeah, but do you think gay people want to be called fairies?
Well, no, but of course, everybody knows it. Everybody uses that term.
But everybody knows they are?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean, Ray?
True. But now...
I see. Ray,
yeah.
How far can you hit a baseball?
Oh, probably a couple hundred feet.
Couple hundred? Uh-huh. How far can you throw a football?
I don't know, maybe 40 yards.
Just 40 yards? Interesting. So would you call yourself a fairy?
No.
I could show you women on a lesbian softball team that can hit and throw farther than you can.
Well, that's true. But
So are you a pansy, Ray?
No, I'm not a pansy.
You don't think the show should be called like Pansy Time, do you?
No. But
You think that would be demeaning to people?
Oh, yeah. Well, pansy is a little bit...
It's a little bit more demeaning than the word fairy?
Yeah.
So it's okay to have something that's just minimally demeaning, but not maximally demeaning.
But when you put the fairy and the tails together...
It just seems cute.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't want cute, Ray. All right, thanks for your call.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Listen, try not to run into any pink lights on your way to the Gourmet Shop, the Grapevine at 256 South University Drive. We'll be right back. Don and Gigi are on. Here on WFTL, we have a whole bunch of issues to talk about. Should George Herbert Hoover Walker Bush quit? What were you doing when Marilyn Monroe passed away? And should we boycott?
M14 WFTL.
Back with you here at 26 delightful minutes before a mellow 7 a.m. on a summer morning here in South Florida, where the growing up is good and the heat is certain. Okay, let's go to Don on the 733-1400 line. And how are you this morning?
Okay, Norm. How are you?
Well, hold on. Try that again with the microphone on. All right.
You with me?
Yeah.
How are you?
Okay.
It's good morning. We're alive. I think a good name for your show would be Lifestyles.
Oh, well, okay, that's the, what about, where were you when Marilyn Monroe died? Do you remember?
I don't remember where I was. I was shocked. I do remember I was shocked, because she was someone that held the front page of the newspapers very often, magazines and stuff. She was a well-known figure. Her relationships with the president and Bobby were well-known. And the whole thing is, you wonder really how she did die. They say she was pregnant when she died. A lot of, open...
Some cumulus clouds of unanticipated suspicion get raised here and set aflame.
The girl was a beautiful woman, and she had a tremendous amount of psychological problems.
The Madonna of her time.
Oh, no, I think Madonna is very well put together.
Madonna's mentally balanced, do you think?
Well, Madonna knows where the bank is, and Madonna knows what her lifestyle she wants it, how she wants it laid out.
Yeah, you have to remember that Marilyn Monroe was very much controlled by her producers and other people.
I would say she was not very much controlled. A little further than I would say she was very much used. I think she was very much used by almost everyone. The guy who really loved her was Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah, he did.
And I could see that everyone else, it seems, like starting with Miller and everyone else, just I think she was like something you would put in your closet and show people, a showpiece, and that's how she was looked at. I don't know how Miller ranked with her as far as her lifestyle was concerned in their marriage, but obviously it seemed would be a mismatch. Joe DiMaggio, no, that was no mismatch.
You don't have to run through all her husbands for us.
But I have a question for you.
Okay, what?
All right, it's one that goes into a legal matter a little later on. What?
Don't count on
it. You never know. There was an insurance company recently that sold a tremendous amount of homeowners and automobile insurance that went out of business.
Boring. Yes.
You remember the name of that?
No.
No, I would love to know that.
Call the insurance commission. They probably have one a week. All right, anything else?
No, except that I've tried I've been going down Steve's restaurant chains. Every time Steve announces, I go over and try them out. And I've never been disappointed. And I think it's a good idea that people know that Steve, for all his other faults, he can sure pick clients. And
one redeeming feature.
One redeeming feature.
The highest spectrum of his human existence is that he knows how to endorse.
As you many times said, he's two different people, one on the stage and one off the stage.
All right.
Take care.
And it's time for you to get off the stage. Sarah, see ya.
Good morning, Norm.
How are you?
Okay, I'm talking about your topic with Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
I think it's such a useless topic. Who cares? I happen to know where I was. I was in Connecticut at a hotel.
Excuse me. You're calling to tell me where you were and wasting your ever so important time to come on my station and tell me that it's a useless topic.
You know why? I happened to watch it on TV yesterday. People are making millions of dollars on her death now. They're still making a lot of money, like with Elvis. People are out there just to make the big bucks, and they're making it, and they're prolonging this thing. Why?
So you're just registering your voice of civil disobedient protest. Is that it, Sarah?
Not really. No, I'm just telling how I feel.
You're just sharing your feelings.
Absolutely, Norman.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Of course, I'm sure your topic can be much better. It sounds like a Steve Kane topic, personally.
Does it?
Now, let's get back to George Bush.
So you listen to Steve Kane as well?
Well, whatever it is.
All right, so let's summarize. So don't address the Marilyn and Monroe topic. Talk to me about George Bush.
Yeah, George Bush. I think he...
Since you think you have the right to control what the hell I want to say and when...
No, I don't have the right control. You're a smart man.
I am, and I don't need help from you.
Okay, now let me tell you about George Bush.
Maybe.
George Bush should give up. He's had his day. In fact, when he was elected president, I'll never forget, I told my husband he's going to be a one-term president. And and I predicted it, and I'm sure he will be. He should give up. He got him by a fluke because they picked George Dukakis to run against him, who was half asleep. Maybe if they picked Al Gore, he would have had a fight. But with George Dukakis, he had no fight, and he was accidentally picked. That was his luck or whatever it was.
Well, I'm glad your memory's so well.
He had no competition, and he never was a smart man. He never will be a smart
So
man.
it was George Dukakis and not Olivia Dukakis?
George Dukakis, Olivia Dukakis is his cousin.
Oh, okay.
To know that. But Michael Dukakis, Michael Dukakis.
Michael? Oh, it's now Michael that ran?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure you have it right now.
Oh, I have it right.
Well, you had it wrong the first 3
I'm
times.
sorry if I did. George,
But you did.
I did.
So you might have had a couple of other things wrong in this conversation as well.
No, I don't think I had anything wrong. It's kind of early in the morning for me, that's why. But
Well, thank you for sharing, sir.
okay, listen, how about my ticket?
Oh, I'm sorry, because you called Michael Dukakis George Dukakis.
Oh,
You
come
don't
on.
get one today. Mary, you're on FTL.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you? You sound like you have a cold.
I do. No, I'm fine, healthy, vigorous,
Your voice-
energized, and cooking.
Oh, I see. Listen,
I am just boiling.
oh, I hope so.
And I have Sarah fuming.
I understand that.
She calls up and calls Michael Dukakis
I know
George
it. I heard
Dukakis.
it. I heard it.
Then she criticizes my selection of show themes, and then she asks for a free script from one of my sponsors.
I wouldn't criticize you
Well, you could. I don't mind.
because I like you very much. Listen.
I don't mind being criticized.
Yeah, I understand. Norman,
Yes.
we bought a lot down here in '62, and we had plans to build a house, and we were on our way north when Marilyn Monroe died.
You were in your trailer, you mean?
No, in a car.
In a car heading north.
Yes, from
And
Atlantic City. And
What did you turn to your husband and say?
what did my husband say?
Yes.
Well, not too much, because I did most of the driving, and he slept.
He did.
Yeah, I always did most of the driving.
All those years, you chauffeured him around.
Oh, I went up there many times by myself, too. Driving.
Well, I'll tell you, here's a man who didn't have to do a Tide commercial. He probably turned around next to the big 54 Buick and said, my wife, I think I'll keep her. She drives well.
You're a doll. So that's where we were headed, up to Atlantic City in Massachusetts. And I don't know, I wasn't too much surprised all that was going on in her life. I figured she was a lonesome person. We could see that.
She and Lenny Bruce, I'm telling you.
Pardon?
She and a couple of other these Hollywood starlets, the only way they know how to end their life is with
Right.
drugs and self-pity.
Right. And as far as Bush, I wish he would give up. I really do. I think he's the wrong man this year.
The wrong man at the wrong time running for the office that doesn't fit him anymore.
I agree with you 100%.
So what does he need it for?
What does he need it for? Of all the money him and his family's got.
After everything they've amassed already, let him just do a Lyndon Johnson speech.
Yeah, poor Lyndon Johnson.
Hit the bricks.
Hit the bricks.
Tell old Georgie to go for some abdomen surgery. All right.
No.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Norman.
And we'll put you on hold for a second. See ya. Of course, is the obligatory end to this conversation. Let's go to Gigi on line 3.
Good morning, Norman.
How you doing?
Okay, I'm looking forward to your AIDS and the Law show.
Well, it should be very educative. Alan Turrell is the author of a new book called, surprisingly, AIDS and the Law, and he is the author of the book. What can I tell you? It's a book for non-lawyers. He is an activist. He is an individual who has been internationally and nationally known for his work. And I think what you will find out is that Rick Seidemann is an idiot, and he will give you some truth. You know, Rick Seidemann likes to say that the AIDS problem is leveling off in America, that there's only 25,000 people a year dying.
Only?
Actually...
You could use that word only.
Only. He could use it. That's what Rick says. Because 500,000 people die of heart disease. That's his theory. But you see, he doesn't realize that AIDS is going up exponentially, which means that 80,000 AIDS deaths in America in January of 1991, 130,000 by July of 1991, 200,000 by January of 92, 250,000 by July of 92, and what we see is an exponential geometric escalation of deaths that suggests that within the next 2 years we may have as many as 500,000 dead. And the bulk of those will have died 420,000 of them will have died in the last 2-3 years. So you see, Rick, if you're awake and listening, that's what you call an epidemic.
And again, he must realize it's not only, even if it was, it still wouldn't matter, but it is not only limited to one form of society. We recently lost a friend named Serge due to AIDS from a transfusion. So it's still out there, and everybody who says, can't touch me, I'm straight, wrong.
Okay, so what else is up?
I just wanted to say that in August of 1963, I was very busy with a brand new baby, so actually I don't remember where I was. I was probably changing a messy diaper, as I was wont to do in those times.
I guess this issue may not ring as many bells with people as I thought it might.
Well, with the Kennedy, I can definitely remember. That's something I remember. I was in a Sears.
Yeah, but that's November, and that's
I know, but
depressing. And
now that would stay in my mind. The Marilyn Monroe, somehow, I guess we don't take our movie stars as seriously as we do our presidents.
all right, we'll keep that in mind this November, okay? All right.
Thank you, Norman.
See you. We'll be back in a second here on WFTL. Time.
Stormin' on Ken. You'll say, what a talk show, Stormin' in the morning with Ken.
And welcome back. It is 12 minutes to 7. Let's go to Laurie 733-1400 in Broward. Let's go to your calls.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Okay. I think it's very demeaning. I wouldn't want to work on a show that's called Fairy Tales.
This is again Steve Kane trying to milk the market like a cow, you know?
Yeah, I know. But, you know, I think, like, for instance, if Bob Coons gets his show, if it's him, I think it should be called The Flip Side, because he's very sarcastic and he's funny.
Well, what about the mere fact that Steve is trying to push this concept fairy tale? Should a bunch of us do something and protest it? Should we tell Steve to stick it? Is it worth getting angry at when you know that Steve will probably back down and he's just trying to do it for fake controversy?
Well, it's like the Dateless and Desperate show. You know, just the name alone could have killed that show if it hadn't been for the person they hired to do it, who turns out to be very, very good. You know, it's something that he's going to whoever takes that on, if he accepts that. I mean, I don't think that anyone who's gay would want to work for a show like that. I mean, it's very offensive. And it's kind of prejudicial because everybody else doesn't have a title to their show like that. I mean, everybody has their name.
When is Rashid on? Does he have a show on Saturday or Sunday now? What should we call it? The
Black Power show? I don't know.
Black Power show?
Obnoxious, you know, and it's just him trying to capitalize on it, and frankly,
Afro-American
a nice
talk?
balance to Rick Siderman. You know, either sides of the coin, and I think that's great.
Well, it's unfortunate that Steve...
I think you should take up a petition, definitely.
Well, it's not so much a petition. It's just a matter of...
I think it's outrageous.
Steve just doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care. He doesn't know where to draw the line. He constantly goes over the line, and he says, well, let's see what we can do about getting publicity and milk this for what we can. And he just doesn't give any care towards decency.
What?
And it's unfortunate because, you know, all we could do is hope that... A lot of people have been saying that his brain is in his ass, and all we could hope for is that the surgeon realigns it next week when he goes for that hernia.
You mean because he's anal retentive?
Exactly.
Uh-huh. I got it.
Thanks for clearing that up for me.
Bye.
All right? Let's see. That opens up a bunch of lines. See ya.
I have to go to work.
I don't blame you. It's got to be better than doing this. FTL. Hello. All right, nobody's on that line. See ya. Before you even got there, see ya. Okay, that opens up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. So I see I'm really kicking into gear here today. At about 8 minutes before 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. A morning that is probably going to be hot and humid and sticky and rotten and summery like the rest of the mornings here in town in the summer. Boy, where would you rather be? Maybe that's what we should be doing. Where would you rather be than here right now? Just describe the beach you want to be at. Tell me about Nantucket or Hyannisport or Cape Cod or P-Town. Tell me about Hilton Head in North Carolina. Tell me about the Denver, Colorado, Rocky Mountains, the Alps in Switzerland, Laguna Beach in California, Mount Shasta. Tell me where you would rather be than here in the middle of the summer. Almost anywhere. I mean, really. It is a sad testimony to our lives. Not only that we're here in the summer, but that we're working here. I think they should just close down this damn state for 2 months. Send us all to summer camp. Camp Sequoia, here I come, right back where I started from. Ruth.
Yeah, I was thinking about Bush stepping down. And
Yes.
I'm a Democrat. I really oppose it. But as a Republican, who would you think should fill his shoes?
See, as a Democrat, you want Bush to be in there because you think that
Precisely.
Clinton can win.
The Republicans might.
I just think that Rick Seideman's going to have to come up with a button that says something other than adulterers for Clinton. If he thinks he's going to win the race, he's surprised.
Is that what he's wearing?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Poor fella. If you can't fight fairly, I guess you have to hit under the belt.
Well, I think what you have to do is, as far as it applies to local people like Steve, who said that Clinton would be dropped out of the race by New Hampshire. You know, I don't hear Steve throwing in my face how many sets of Dunross baseball cards he bet me that Bush would lose the election or Bush would win the election.
Well, how do you come out if Bush steps down?
Well, obviously, that's a loss in my book.
Uh-huh.
But
What would you suggest? Kemp?
I would think that if George Bush were to step down, the immediate nominees for the Republican Party or candidates would be Pete Wilson, the governor of California.
Who's horribly unpopular.
He would be one of the first. Well, he's horribly unpopular, but not amongst the Californians. And, I mean, not amongst the National Republican Party.
Oh.
He represents the best in family values, you know, vetoing the gay rights amendment as he did. And then, of course, there's Jack Kemp.
Uh-huh.
And they have a few other people in the wings that...
How about Dole as his running mate?
Who?
Kemp and Dole.
Well, I don't know. You know, Dole, he's still got that pineapple image to shed. He's very abrasive. He's not somebody that is going to be charismatic enough to get a lot of votes. He has a strong independent legion. Listen, Pat Buchanan might take over the Republican Party if Bush were to drop out.
Oh, well.
Maybe Gene Hansen's available. That's always a possibility.
Who did you?
Gene Hansen, the Broward County chairperson of the Republican Party.
Oh, I'm not even...
Yeah, she resembles that, and maybe Barry Goldwater will make a comeback.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
All right, as far as Steve Kane.
And there was another sentence to that I don't remember.
As far as Steve Kane is concerned, I think we can forget stupidity. I see absolutely no importance what particular sexual orientation anyone has. It's nobody's business.
Okay.
Okay?
See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Lee.
Lee, Norman, two things.
Two things.
Everybody is pushing this Clinton extramarital affairs. No one ever mentions the fact that was proven that President Bush had all these mistresses when he was in the CIA. Why in the hell don't they bring that up?
Well, you know what CIA stands for? It stands for Court and...
Got a better answer than I.
CIA stands for Court in the Act. It was renamed after George Bush.
Okay, I go along with...
All right, well, listen, I have no problem with Clinton having these extramarital affairs.
I don't either.
It's much better than him being a bigamist, you know, better than marrying all these people.
Really?
And if you can't cheat on your wife or your lover, who can you cheat on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I go along with that. And what the guy did in the...
Because I spoke to your husband, and he said he cheated on you quite a few times a few years ago.
Well, I don't care what the guy did. What he does today, tomorrow, and the next day.
And that's what Bob Hope said, too.
And you know what? One thing I would like to tell you...
Criticize a man until you've walked a mile in his Reeboks. Yes.
One thing I'd like to tell you, you've heard of all these the singers.
It's easy for you to say, yes?
Yeah, and a lot of them, there must be a dozen and a half, that has cancer of the throat for yelling and screaming and singing too loud, straining their larynx. Now,
straining their larynx?
What?
Yeah, you can't fool around with that larynx too much.
Well,
so what are you recommending? That everybody go into the Smith Throat Lozenge Company or shut up?
No. Not take me serious because I've listened to you for a long time and I've seen you and...
If you've listened to me for a long time, you know there's a lot of reasons why I don't take people seriously, and you're one of them.
Well...
But, go ahead. Tell me about this cancer of the...
take it for what it's worth.
I am, believe me.
People that use a high-pitched voice when they're excited to put across their idea or whatever, but then down the road they have problems with their throat. And you're too good of a person down the road. You're too young to have something wrong with your throat, and you really don't have to raise your voice to put across an opinion.
Okay, Doctor, so much. Thank you for your comment. See ya. Isn't that nice of her to call in with medical advice? Linda, you're on FTL.
Hi. I don't imagine my opinion on anything is going to matter much this morning either, but I do have something I want to say about your new 12 to 3 slot.
Oh, the Pat Stevens debacle, yes.
We were all trying to be very, I think, in general, accepting due to the circumstances of this program. And I really have to say that, I don't know how it will be taken, but it's really a crock.
In other words, you don't like Pat's show?
I think that it is absolutely nauseating.
I'm at a real disadvantage and the wrong person to talk to because, with the exception of last night when I had an extraordinary circumstance, I am never up between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. to hear so much as 3 minutes of the show because I am in bed long before midnight since I get up at 5 to come here at 6. So I'm not the person to talk to about the Pat Stevens show between 12 and 3.
Mm-hmm. I figured that, but it just so happens that
you just had to vent.
Yeah, I listened to you.
You felt compelled to talk about her show with excess editor Stephen Wissink today.
Oh, he's going to be on there today?
No, he was on last night with Pat.
Oh, I didn't know who it was that was on because actually all the giggling and the carrying on.
The giggling, it was that giggling. It got under your skin like a chalk on a blackboard. That's what happened.
It's really, in the middle of the night.
It was very frustrating. It was worse than Jerry Wichner spinning old records. I know what you mean.
Okay.
Well, I'll see that it never happens again.
I'm sure.
Just lock in your dial to 1570 and go get the old gospel hour. And I want you to take all your Quaaludes and throw them into the river. And I want you to take all your drugs, and I want you to gather all your aspirin and your cocaine and all your Valium, madam, and I want you to throw it into the river. And I want you to take all your alcohol and your booze and your liquor and your sultans of sin, and I want you to throw it into the river. And now I want you to all get together. I want you to all gather around. And I want you to be with me today for our opening song here on Sunday Morning Sermonette with Sam Saxon, the Sinful Sinner. And let us sing our opening song. Shall we gather at the river?
On FTL, Norman gives him hell. Fridays a week on FTL.
7:07 a.m., 8592, chilling with you here early in the morning, the second hour of the Storm and Norm Kent Show. Alan Searle, AIDS and the Law, author, activist, next on the Norm Kent Show. That comes your way at 8 a.m. Let's go to Gloria, our conscience here at the station. Good morning.
How you doing?
Hello, dear.
Hi. I'm just waking up, and I hear you and decided I'd give you a call this morning. I don't know what name to suggest for the new show. I don't know who's going to finally be the host. Have you any idea?
Well, two of the top candidates are appearing today at noon on the Gary Daniels Show.
Oh.
That will help Nick, I'm sure, iron down the finalists. As far as the concept of calling the show Fairy Tales goes, that's out of the question. That's just Steve Kane being his vicious, theatrical best. And it's insensitive, it's callous, it's inexcusable, it won't stand. To quote George Bush on the Iraqi invasion, it won't stand. Speaking of George Bush, I'm going to change the theme of my first hour of the show. You see, I said, should George Bush run or not? I said, I asked people to call in and say, well, should he just give in? Should Kemp run? Should Dole run? Should Wilson run? Should any of the prominent other Republicans, William Cohen of Maine, consider a candidacy now that Bush is all but defeated? But I have a better idea than that.
Well, I wanted to suggest, as one of the reasons I called in for this reason.
Yes.
What is interesting, nobody's getting these, well, I heard Rick said he was going to get one Republican sometime next week or whatever that disagrees. But someone should do that. Now, Al is not making a special attempt to do that. If it was Clinton who was going down the tube and was having a bad time, everybody would be on Clinton. They would have every guess you could find to trash Clinton.
Well, because you got to realize that basically Nick Lawrence is the tool of Steve Kane and Rick Seidemann, and Steve tries to, not only does he try to dominate the programming on the air by interrupting every show with his pathetically chronic calls that say absolutely nothing except make his own point, which is tired, boring, and redundant. What Steve is now trying to do is through quiet subterfuge try to control the programming department and the guests that get on the air.
Well, I think it's up to you and Al to do different. Now, even if you have to do your own. I know it's hard when you have your own job, you have a law firm and everything.
No. I do that. I do quite well right here, and I have no excuses. I think we're very successful at what we do.
Some of the names you could ask to come on your program to really put the heat to Steve and them.
Well, we're going to be doing that. I got surprises for you. We're going to be doing that.
Gregory is one. He's a very outspoken. He has been on Nightline. He has been on several different programs. These people are speaking out loud, actually suggesting that the president and Kemp, the president...
Listen, Gloria, it's in today's USA Today. They asked Bush directly whether or not he wouldn't help the Republican Party more by stepping down. It's obviously a clear issue. The man is tired, worn out, pathetic. The economy is suffering woes it never has before. The AIDS issue has not been effectively addressed. In fact, the National Commission on AIDS pointed out that the president has enacted 0 of its 30 recommendations from 1991.
That's right.
Bush is a tired old man, and as Bill Clinton said yesterday, he's the failed president of a huge country. And the bottom line is that Bush is going to be beaten, and that's why I want to shift the tenor of my show this morning.
Hey, do it.
From should George Bush be considering withdrawing his name to something more realistic.
Right.
Which is what kind of job we can find for George Bush after he loses in November.
That's the thing you and Al have to do. Y'all have to have a meeting. Look,
a meeting?
You two have to have a meeting, have a conference together, because if Steve and Rick can get together and start talking, and they come up with a strategy of talking with nonchalant, silly stuff, you two have to get together and do your own strategy. Now, it's up to you two. Nobody else is going to do it.
Okay, let me go to some other calls.
All right.
See ya. We'll start with Arlen. Marvin's next on FTL.
Good morning, Norman.
Yes.
I've already figured out, and I got it from an unreliable source, how the Republicans are going to win this year. They're secretly wooing Mario Cuomo to change to Republican and run. He'd get all the Democrats' votes, plus the Republicans.
You're really uncanny, Arlen, because every time you call in with one of these whiz-pot ideas, you actually think you're funny.
Don't you think that would be a way to win, though?
No, I think that the times you call in, you start off with the energy of a firebrand, but you flame out like a match in a breeze on a barbecue Sunday. You know what I mean?
This is a dump Dan and dump Bush, though, year.
Well, listen, the question is, folks, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to give away some prizes at the end of the day at 733-1400. I'm going past the question of whether Bush should run or not.
Yeah.
I want people to comment on that if they'd like.
One thing, the Republicans...
But I'd like them to comment, Arlen, on something else.
How about the Republicans?
How come I can't finish a sentence?
Recruits a lot of people.
Did you ever notice that when you're on the air that I don't get to finish a sentence?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's because you have an agenda, you see.
Okay.
And you feel so compelled to share it with the audience that the talk show host is in second place when you're on the air.
Ah.
All right, now let me make my
say
point.
Something now, Norman?
No, I want to ask you a question.
Okay, ask it.
What kind of job do you want for George Bush after the election?
Well,
he's obviously going to not withdraw, and he's equally going to fail in his bid for a re-election. Let's find him employment after the election.
Some of these politicians seem to be going into talk show host business.
Okay, so you think he could be a host on FTL?
I don't know. I don't think he'd qualify at that particular station. Probably at that other one up in Palm Beach.
I don't know. I think he'd be great. You know why?
Why?
He's full of baloney. That's what
See ya.
is tonight. He's such a phony, just like He's full of baloney. He's full of baloney. When he says that things are fine.
Hot Talk, 24 hours a day on AM 14 WFTL.
If you are thinking about having a barbecue this weekend and you're going to overdose yourself with hamburger, well, I'm not quite storming here today. It's a mellow Wednesday, middle of the week, get over the hump kind of day. A day that I traditionally try not to work in my law office, but I have to today. Hopefully not too much. The lines are open at 733-1400 in Broward, 1-800-874-3454. Star FTL star 385 on your Bell South Mobility line. Giving away some gourmet gift certificates today. The Grapevine Gourmet Gift Shop. We're going to give away a big gift certificate, a big prize at the end of the show. And we have a couple of DeSalvos to the winners. We're looking at a new contest now. We've kind of passed the stage of what you were doing when Marilyn Monroe died. No one seems to remember or care. But we're even past the first tier of our contest in which we asked whether George Herbert Walker Bush, the Hoover of the 90s, should run for re-election. Since it's obvious he is not going to withdraw, he sternly said that today in the USA Today, we're asking you to call in at 733-1400 and creatively give us a job that George Bush can do after the election, since Mr. Bush is obviously not going to be re-elected. And we want to soothe the transition to a new form of employment for him, since we want to suggest to our dear president what he would be best suited to do and what he would be most comfortable with when he's no longer in the White House, which should only be in about 6 months. Starting off with Mel, let's go to line 3.
Oh, hi. So, how is everything? What's up? Just the, what Bush should do?
Yes, Mel. Mel, did you ever think about the concept of maybe calling in with the answers to the question before you picked up the phone?
Yeah.
Did you ever think of that maybe just once, Mel?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. Let me know when you do it and try it, okay? Steve, you're on FTL.
Good morning, Norman. I think I found the job for him.
All right, we're looking for a job for our future ex-president.
Well, somebody had already had the job, but they discontinued it. But I think they can revive it with George because he's the perfect spokesman. But Joe Isuzu?
Joe Isuzu. Now, Bush is in his 60s. Can he jump up and collect his heels like that?
They can do it with mirrors for him. I mean, they did it for Reagan. They had him waking up all that time, you know?
Well, Reagan thought for 8 years he was acting in a role. He came on Johnny Carson and said, "Did you see the role I played? It was the best one around." And Johnny had to give him a wake-up call and said, "No, Ron, you were the president."
Well, I think they didn't give him a wake-up call. I think they put a little electronic metal plate beneath his seat, just to give him a little shock here and there.
Well, we know that Bush. Listen, you know what Bush can do? I got the best one of all. I have the very best. I should win the gift certificate.
That's not fair.
I'm not going to reveal it for at least 8 minutes. My idea is so good I can't even hold it in.
But you don't like the Joe Isuzu?
That's a very good one, but mine is better.
How can yours be better? You're the talk show host.
Well, that's why. I'm better at what I do than you are.
Could become a lawyer.
Well, now, I didn't say I was better.
He's too used to that.
That's boring.
Is he a lawyer? He doesn't have a law degree, does he?
No, I don't think Bush is a lawyer.
No, because he's worked for the CIA too long.
Right, exactly.
Barr wouldn't have him anymore.
Look, the man was ambassador to the United Nations. He was ambassador to China. He was a congressman in Texas. He was head of the CIA. He was vice president. Basically, the man couldn't hold a job.
Oh, he had Zapata
and now we're proving that he can't even hold a job as president.
I'm telling you. I have that record, too, but people don't want to hire me.
Well, for good reason, Steve. They've seen your credentials, looked at your looks, and they said that there's no chance.
Hey, I got okay looks, not no chance.
I don't know. I'm just teasing you. How old are you?
30.
30. You got potential, man.
I've got potential. I could be a nobody for another 30 years.
You could. So, you married and divorced yet? Do you have any future ex-lovers down the road?
Not married and divorced, but yes, there are more future ex-lovers.
Okay. Well, just keep them in mind, because future ex-lovers are people you can one day go back to and say, hey, it could have been great.
Hey, give me the grapevine. I'll get closer to a future ex-lover here.
All right, well, listen, you can make love to some of the wine they have there, that's for sure. You're in the contest. You know, Joe Isuzu, look, all I can say is the best answer we've got so far.
The only one.
All right?
Don't print me up. Oh, boy.
No, you're the best answer so far, so hang in there.
Okay.
All right. Brian, did you get this man's name, address, phone number, serial number, and a Polaroid photograph of him? Okay. Well, you better. Line 1. That's another Steve on line 5.
Yeah, good morning, Norm.
How are you?
I've got the perfect job for George Bush.
Okay, it's got to be better than the one I got, because I got the perfect one. I mean, I got a most excellent one.
Well, he's going
Wayne's World. Swing. Yes.
He's going to get a job with Wayne Huizenga's company, Waste Management, as a sanitation engineer to haul away all the crap he spewed out over the years.
Ooh, a bitter and vindictive suggestion for the future ex-president, George Herbert Walker. Possibly, I like that.
Good.
It's not quite as simple and as clean-cut as Joe Isuzu, but it's right up there, okay?
Okay.
And, you know, if you had said that he would be, since he's a former first baseman for Yale, if you had said that he was going to be a janitor for the Marlins, working on the mound and doing a better job than Glenn Mott and the rest of the Robbie Stadium crew did last March, we'd be okay.
Okay.
You remember that when they had those spring training games there and the mound was built like an Indian teepee?
No.
Yeah, they had to stop the game and they couldn't play it because it was so dangerous.
Okay.
Seems they forgot to put mounds in the bullpens. They struggled with it. They had a hard time that there was a concept of a baseball game. By the way, Joe Robbie Stadium opens Friday night. It's the Dolphins and Dallas at 8 p.m. Jimmy Jones comes to town to get his ass kicked by Don Shula, provided that the ball players are there and not getting abducted or soliciting for prostitution.
It's his wife. He looked a hell of a lot younger than her, I'll tell you that one. Except now that he looks older than her.
Well, he withered in office. Ronald Reagan's the only president that grew young in office. Okay, thanks.
All right.
See ya. Let's go to Pat.
All right, Norman, I have the perfect job for Bush.
All right. Everybody thinks they have the perfect job, but I have the best one.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
I not only have a job for Bush, I have one for Quayle, too.
Okay. Well, we want to help out the president, first of all.
All right. President Bush could go work as a cashier at Publix and learn how about scanners.
He could learn about supermarket pricing.
Right.
I don't think the man's been in a supermarket in this century.
Doesn't know about the scanners and everything.
Yeah, he doesn't. You know, he still buys his food in Kennebunkport, Maine. I think when he was running for office last year or campaigning, he stopped in a J.C. Penney's once and bought some Pepsodent or something.
Right.
You know, he says, see, I'm just like you all. I buy toothpaste.
Right. And then they could put Dan Quayle to work in the produce department. He could learn about Florida oranges and potatoes.
And exactly, learn how to spell them and sell them. Well, there you go. It's not a great idea, but I really like it.
Okay.
Because it does point out the fact that the poverty level is the highest in South Florida. It does touch upon the incredible economic woes of our nation. It manages to capture the essence of the national debt. And so many thousands and thousands of jobs that have been lost during the Bush administration. Here's a man who said he was going to make 28 million jobs in 4 years, and he's done it.
Right, and also
he's got 28 million people on unemployment lines.
Also, as a cashier, he could be handling all those food stamps too.
Yeah, that would teach him a lesson.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for the suggestion, Pat.
Okay.
All right. Put Pat's name down. She's a candidate there for some of that DeSalvo's gift certificates. Let's go to Fred or Joe. We'll go to Fred next.
Hi, Norm. I have a good job for Mr. Bush.
And what do you have in mind?
Board up for Craig Worthing.
I don't think Bush can stay up that late at night.
Well, maybe Steve would change his hours.
Now, wait a second. Isn't Craig a liberal Democrat? Why would George Herbert Walker want to... Well, they're both from the Boston area. They could share tales about New England and Cape Cod.
Exactly, and the Red Sox and...
Of course, who the hell knows where Bush is from? You know, is he from Maine? Is he from Connecticut? Is he from Texas? I guess it depends. The man says he's from 5 different states at any given time.
Yeah, it's true. He is kind of a mystery, but...
Yeah, I have no idea where the hell the guy's from.
Well, you know where he is all the time then with Craig, you know, because they go on those remotes together and everything, so...
Well, that would be a possibility. Fred will put you right up there in the Pat category with the cashier in Publix. So I would say right now, Lillian's the winner of the Grapevine Gourmet Shop gift certificate, and Steve, Pat, and Fred are in line for the DeSalvo's one. Do you have that down, Brian Craig? And we have a bunch of, so stay on the line, Brian will get that. We have a bunch of open lines all of a sudden at 733-1400 in Broward. See if we can't squeeze this issue and milk it out. Now, come on, folks. Don't you have consideration for a future ex-president? Just think of him as a future ex-lover. Where would you like him to work? Or her to work? 18 minutes to 8. Let's go to Joe on line 3.
Hi, how about, Bush is on top of everything, so how about Ross Perot's campaign manager?
No, come on now, Ross is out of it.
By November, he should probably know that Ross is out of the race. He's on top of it.
You know why that's not good? Because Bush is not a quitter. I talked about this earlier. Bush will not back down, will not run, will not hit the bricks. He's going to stay the course.
Well, this is not, he might not get that job. I think it's been filled, but he'll probably be the fourth for bridge with the failed President's Club.
He'll just be one more Republican president going to the Reagan Library and looking to read a book and check out Bedtime for Bonzo.
Well, at least he can, but Dan Quayle, he might have a problem with that. But, Dan's family, they out there, they're the newspaper publishers. You think they're keeping his paper route open?
Hey, there you go. I like that. But we can't concern ourselves with Danny Boy right now. We have to work on finding a job for ex-President Bush. Okay, see ya. D, you're on FTL.
I got a terrific job, Norman.
Okay, wait till I tell you mine. I'm going to tell mine right after you.
Okay, golf pro.
No, that's Dan Quayle.
Why?
George Bush doesn't golf.
Golf's a jerk.
Golf goes...
He goes on vacation. He runs to play golf.
No, Bush goes fly fishing most of the time. He can't play golf. That's just for the cameras.
Oh.
That's just because he's a rich, waspy kind of guy, and he thinks being on the country club set... See, it's a lousy choice.
Get rid of him, that's all I think.
It's a really a lousy choice. But you're going to help vote him out, right?
And how?
All right. Everybody else around you voting him out, too?
Darn right.
So, it's important that we let him get beat. We need, thank you, D.
I can't stand the man. When I see him, I get all disgusted.
But how do you really feel?
I can't bear him, honestly, Norman. And I do like that other fellow. He's so
cute.
Striking. Billy Boy.
All right.
He's terrific, and so are you.
See ya.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Well, here's my suggestion. Now, it was revealed not too long ago that our program director, Steve Kane, when he was not on his day drugs, had an evening drug. The evening drug that he misabused and continues to disabuse is Halcyon. And, of course, George Bush, folks. George Bush is one of the worst victims of Halcyon this nation has ever known. The sleeping pill that George Bush takes has caused him to disassociate in the mornings, be disjunctive, cause him to have an inability to communicate effectively. His words and sentences have been blurred. His communication factors have been diminished. The quality of his speech has just fallen off the table. I would make George Bush a pharmaceutical detail man for Halcyon. I would have him become the national Halcyon representative for Roche Company or whoever the hell does that crap. Don't you think that would be a great idea, Brian? Who would be better to push and market the product Halcyon? He could go, and I could just see it now. Because the way Hank Aaron's getting $25,000 to do the baseball card show over at Joe Robbie this weekend with Giorgio, right? Now, Steve Kane, of course, he's getting nothing. Steve Kane isn't getting a penny, but he likes to go on the air and says, I'll be appearing with Hank Aaron. Like crap. You think anyone's going to pay to see Steve Kane? He's going to pay $5 to get in there like everybody else. But we know what Steve Kane likes to say. He likes to say, I'll be appearing with Hank Aaron at Giorgio's show. So we understand it's just free promo for Giorgio. That's okay. Because we know that Steve's a schnorr and he loves to do that, and why knock him for it? We love him for it. That's part of the measure of grasping all of Steve. We know that. That's okay. We can live with that. But why just Hank Aaron when you can have the former president? Imagine if George Bush, our future ex-president, becomes the national spokesperson for Halcyon. Then Steve Kane could announce, and coming to Joe Robbie Stadium this October 17th, Steve Kane and George Herbert Walker Bush in a dissemination and tour of halcyon homes here in South Florida. Would be great. Terrific. Works for me. Doesn't it work for you? 12 minutes to 8. So far, I'm the winner. You better beat my answer. Lillian, you're in trouble. By the way, before I go to a break, let me just tell you quickly that the Las Olas Merchants Association presents the first annual Las Olas Jazz Days. It's a promotion and a charity all this weekend. Starts Friday, August 7th, 1992 from 8 to 11 p.m. Jim, how come you don't have this on the publicity charts? Saturday, August 8th from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Las Olas Boulevard will be closed from 8 a.m. the whole day from Southeast 6th Avenue to 10th Terrace for the entire event. Wow. 2 stages, great jazz, the Richard Brookins Trio, Valerie Z in Paris.
FTL.
Okay, it's about 10 minutes to 8, no musical intro. This topic is too exciting to pass up. Steve Kane absolutely delirious with anger, fuming. I understand he's reprogramming his entire show today. He won't be doing Fatal Attractions. He's so upset at realizing he could care less that George Bush is going to lose. But when he realized he bet me 2 sets of 1984 Dunross, he fell apart emotionally. 10 minutes to 8, let's go to Esther on FTL. Good morning.
Norman?
Yes.
Yes. The only hope that George Bush has is to buy himself a Bible and look for a loophole.
Where there is no vision, the people perish. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. See you. Terry.
Hi, good morning, Norm.
Good morning.
I think you have a fantastic radio station. Now, the job that I would say that Bush would be good for, we've got a terrible problem with the Haitians. I think he should be able to take care of that.
Well, how could he care about them? He's sending them all back as it is.
Well, some are here, some go back. You know,
some callers have good ideas, and some, like you, try hard and have great spirit and energy, but strike out miserably.
You're right, Norm. What can I tell you?
Well, keep on trying. Gary, you're on FTL.
Hi. I think Rick Siderman and Bush could get a job together as national poster models for family values. They could show what good Republicans do when the girl gets pregnant. You could dress George as the groom and Rick as the pregnant bride.
Well, Rick and drag is something that's just a couple of years away. It's part of his evolutionary process. The man's been in leather long enough to know that eventually he's going to have to come to grips with it. Anyway, thanks for the idea.
Okay.
All right, it's not a winner, but it's a good thought. Terry.
Terry.
Well, I don't know. Who is this?
This is Jerry.
Jerry.
Wow, I just got on.
Oh, you know what? There was a guy named Terry on the line. He hung up. You called in. You're Jerry.
Okay, welcome.
And you kind of skated past a couple of other people there.
That's great.
Lucky you.
Really?
Depends. I might humiliate you. You don't know yet.
No. You almost stole my deer on the way to work, but as I just got in here, George Bush should sign his Desert Storm cards at baseball card shows.
He should sign cards at a show. Desert Storm card. That's great. That's great. George Bush could do baseball cards. What a great idea.
It is. I mean, it's really working.
Now, listen, you don't want to take away the gift certificate from Lillian, do you?
Excuse me?
You don't want to take away Lillian's gift certificate, but that's a great idea.
It is.
All right, you're a winner. You get a $10 gift certificate to the Salvos, that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much.
I mean, where do you live?
Hollywood.
Oh, well, there's 2 locations in Hollywood, isn't there?
Yeah, right.
Right on Sheridan or something?
That's where it is.
40th Avenue, right up there?
That's it.
So you have to stop here and pick up the gift certificate, but what a great idea. George Bush could come to baseball card shows with Steve Kane and not only market Halcyon, but sign his Desert Storm cards. Obviously, they might be of value because, according to the troops that we have in Kuwait, we may see a Desert Storm Series 2 any day now.
By the way,
and as he gets lower in the polls, the more likely that we will see Series 2 increases, doesn't it?
Yes. By the way, how is your deprogramming going for the Dodgers? It's been very easy this year.
Well, you see, it's all part of my deprogramming. By them going out and signing these multimillionaire free agents. And, you know, it's really working in tandem with the Mets because I also loved the Mets growing up with Tom Seaver and Long Island. Watching Darryl Strawberry and Eric Davis and Juan Samuel and Bob Ojeda discombobulate Why, it's just been great for me. I've been able to watch the Marlins and adapt to the Marlins and try to, get into it. By the way, I spoke to Chuck Poole of the Florida Marlins yesterday, and it will be not too long before they announce our season ticket locations.
I am waiting, Brett.
One of those any day now kind of things.
That's great, because I have seats also.
Yeah, so he said any day now. He says it won't be till September that we can actually go in the stadium and have your show them your seat day. But if you have season tickets to the Dolphins or you go to any of the spring training games for them, the exhibition games, you'll know your seats so you can walk around in the Dolphin game and pick out your seat and see where it is.
Great.
So that will be exciting.
Yes, it will.
All right, it's about time. I mean, really, 4 months. Come on, guys.
We got a ways to go.
All right. Well, listen, it's great talking to you. You're definitely a winner. George Bush goes to the Giorgio show and signs his Desert Storm cards. Okay, let's go to Rob on line 4. Rob on line 4 is gone. Sorry about that, Rob. Let's go to Bob on line 2.
Good morning, Norm.
Hello.
Hey, you were talking about being ugly a while ago. Well, tell you, do you ever look at Clinton's daughter? She takes the cake for being ugly.
Oh, I'm telling you, between Tipper and Hillary's daughter, we have the national ugly families running for the White House.
Right. And now, as far as George is concerned, you don't have to worry about that because he's going to be back in the White House 4 more years.
Now, look at that. It's so good. It's so good to have a dreamer amongst all my callers. So good to... You are such a dreamer. You must be a cop, right?
No, I'm a good old Republican.
It's so delightful to have a righteous Republican calling in to fantasize. When was the last time you saw your therapist?
When's what?
When was the last time you saw your therapist?
I saw what?
Saw your therapist. Have you told him about your dreaming episodes?
No, I'm still going to be Bush.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, Norm.
See ya. Pat, you're on FTL.
Gosh, that guy stole my thunder. I'm for Bush, too.
You are? You mean he beat you
Bush supporter. He's going to be back in the White House.
What, is he your husband? He's calling from downstairs, you're calling from upstairs?
No, I don't think so. I only have one phone in my house.
So you don't want...
I'm not like the rich Democrats.
You're not like the rich...
Got 2 phones in their house.
You still have one of those rotary dials?
It sounds like you're talking with mush in your mouth, honey. I can't...
Yeah, I don't know what... Brian, you ought to find out what the hell's going on here. Oh, you know what it is?
It's so simple, and all the other people that all called are all kind of dumb.
Hold it, I see what happened. Hold on, I see what's happening. My microphone's off the mark. It's all the way to the red.
Better now.
Oh, Brian, why didn't you tell me that? Did you notice that? The microphone was like all the way off the red. All right, thanks for calling.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Chronic Steve from Cooper City is in fact on the line, desperate as he is to become the national Halcyon spokesperson with George Bush. Can't stay off the phone, this man. It is so pathetic. It is so pathetic the way he just can't get off the phone. Good morning.
What, was it a slow news day today for you?
No, this is a great show. We're trying to help out our future ex-president and see if we can't find employment for him before we begin our show on AIDS and the law.
Listen, by the way,
are you calling? Yeah, I know that you as
want me to talk.
I know that you as the program director wouldn't try to shift the tenor of the talk.
No, I wouldn't at all. In fact, I just want to pick up on a sleazy, misleading remark you made, implying that we have a bet for an 84 Donruss set when you called that bet off on the air.
Yeah, I see. Oh, look at him run. Look at him cut and run. I have a written, signed contract, Mr. Kane.
On the air,
I have a documented contract, and I'm not even going to honor... If you want to disgrace yourself on the Tuesday after the election and not honor the bet, Mr. Kane, everybody in the audience will know about it.
I was not the one to call it off. I was ahead by 25 points.
Mr. Kane, everybody knows you made
Everybody does know because you called it off on your show.
You're an absolute disgrace. I can't believe you're even going to try to argue.
One other little quick question.
No questions. Do you have a new job for our future ex-president? Don't you think you and he together would make a great team talking about the benefits of Halcyon, going to baseball card shows?
It would be a wonderful idea. I love the idea of appearing at baseball card shows with the president.
Well, it will be.
I want to tell you how much I enjoyed that dinner we had at Left Bank on Monday night. You know the one I'm talking about?
No, I don't know the one you're talking
It's the one where you went into Barbara to get the trade and said, I'm having dinner with Steve tonight at Left Bank.
And then I
Had
found...
dinner.
I see. Now, what are you talking about? Steve, I have to go to an 8 o'clock
Yeah, I
break.
bet you do.
Okay, man, I don't know. Well, all right, I guess I do know. I went into Barbara and I said, I'd like to go to the Left Bank for dinner. May I have some script? And she said yes. And then as she autographed the script, she said to me, oh, you should have fun. Steve Kane is going to the Left Bank for dinner that night. And I said, oh, really? And then I looked to Greg and I said, hey, if Steve's going, I ain't going to be there. That's for sure. I mean, really. We can squeeze one more call in before I give myself the award. Lillian, you're the winner so far. Jimmy, can you beat Lillian?
Hello, Norm. I think so.
What is it?
I would suggest that Bush go into business even before the election. I suggest he start up a business manufacturing Bush barf bags. In the unlikely event that he does get elected, a lot of people will be in need of them.
Well, it's a good idea, but it's not the greatest. Lillian just edges you out by 1/4 of a point. It's 8 a.m. Stay tuned to Norm Kent for one more hour with Alan Turl. We will be right back.
Okay.
CNN Radio for the Gold Coast. WFTL, Fort Lauderdale.
And back with you here Wednesday, the 5th of August, 1992. That song to the tune of Good Lovin', courtesy of Gene Ryder. And we want to send our condolences to Gene, who called in just last Wednesday, visiting up in Crab Cake Land in Maryland. Suddenly lost his 78-year-old father to a heart attack this past weekend. And on behalf of WFTL, we do want to send our condolences to Gene. And welcome to this hour, Alan Turl, on our show AIDS and the Law. Now, I see Rob and Linda are still desperately holding over from the past hour to share with us their thoughts on what kind of occupation our future ex-president will have. Now, Alan, as I welcome you, you don't mind if I just take these two calls and see what they have to say about occupations Mr. Bush can have beginning next January?
I'm happy to do my part to find him a new career.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we agree on that. Yes. Rob, you're on FTL. Rob, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We're going to carry you over, and what's your suggestion?
How about the Maytag repairman?
He'd be a very lonely man. And we don't want to take a man that was in the spotlight this long and make him go cold turkey.
Okay.
But we can send him to some Gateway AA meetings. That might help. All right, thank you. Linda?
Yeah.
Our last suggestion for a future career for our future ex-president.
Okay, I'll make it fast. I think he should get a job in the unemployment office and passing out those checks to all those people that he put there, and then when it comes time to get paid, he should get minimum wage.
I think what we should do is we should make him work there bare-chested, okay?
Probably.
And make the checks kind of out of a plastic tape that we just like rip them right off his chest one at a time so the skin comes falling off as he does it.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not too much of a torturer, am I? Okay, thanks for your call.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Alan, all I could say is congratulations. I've known you many years. You have been in the forefront of litigation in Broward County on AIDS issues ever since the days of Todd Shuttleworth, who was, of course, that county employee who got fired when he was discovered to have had the AIDS virus, and you went to work with Larry Corman, I know, on reclaiming Todd's job and getting him a settlement. And now you've written a book. Tell me about the book and the purpose of it and how long you worked on it.
Well, the book is called AIDS and the Law, a Basic Guide for the Non-Lawyer. There are already enough things out for the legal profession, the research that they need for various kinds of litigation, but what we hadn't had to this point was a book that explained the different areas of society, all the different areas of life that AIDS now touches, and the legal implications of it reaching into all those areas, such things as employment and family law, and even immigration in the military, and of course insurance issues, total variety of issues. I began the project as just a chapter of another book written by two local psychologists, Dr. Ross Seligson and Dr. Karen Peterson. It's called AIDS, Hope, Healing, and Humor, and I did a chapter on public policy and discrimination, and they were willing to pay me just a pittance of a one-time fee for that. And I told them I really couldn't sell them 5 years' worth of research on this issue for just that one-time amount. So they said, call the publisher, and called the publisher and proposed this major volume on AIDS and the law for the non-lawyer, full treatment, and within 3 days I had a book contract, and that was very gratifying. Spent about an additional year, most of the time, double-checking footnotes. As you as an attorney know, lawyers are responsible to do things like that and do them correctly. But the book came together very nicely, and it's a very easy-reading, easy-flowing explanation of concepts that that frequently otherwise would intimidate people.
Well, let's see if we can't address some of the concepts that are in the book. As I was reading it last night for the first time, having only acquired it a few days ago, we as lawyers are constantly exposed to human horror stories, and one of the chapters right in the beginning, the Access to Justice chapter, talks about some of the horror stories you have seen that have happened to people who have contracted the AIDS virus. Could you share a couple of those that are the worst that you've witnessed in the States?
Well, one particularly occurred in Florida, and I'd like to zero in on that one. It was over in Fort Myers in Lee County, and we had a traffic court defendant who was no angel. He came in front of the judge with a long, long string of offenses behind him, but these were new offenses, and he was there. The judge asked for his plea, guilty or not guilty, and he pleaded no contest, which, as you know, means that the judge can go directly to sentencing. And the judge explained that and said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" The defendant said yes. And she said, "Well, then we'll move into sentencing." The man's father got up and just said, "Judge, if I can say something to you, please don't send my son to jail. He's sick." And the defendant himself rose and said, "Your Honor, I am sick. Please don't send me to jail." And the judge demanded to know what the nature of the illness was. Was it physical, mental, or what? He handed her a note, and we have to presume that the note said, "I have AIDS." The judge at that point went into a rage, a tirade, cleared the courtroom, screamed, "How dare you come into my courtroom and bring that disease into the courthouse? How dare you expose all of these people who are the court personnel and me and everyone else in this courtroom?" She had the courtroom cleared, had the courthouse staff sanitize the area. Later she told reporters that he was close enough for his spittle to have reached her, and after all, she had hangnails. You've heard of the hanging judge. She's now become the hangnail judge. And that was an absolute outrage. One doesn't acquire HIV disease through spittle and hangnails. It just doesn't happen that way. She was showing absolute ignorance. The judge in that case was the subject of a complaint to the Florida Bar, to the Judicial Qualifications Commission, which I personally filed because of the outrage of her acts. She's no longer on the bench, perhaps because of that, perhaps for some other reasons.
Well, having been on the cutting edge for so long of the AIDS issues, I'm sure you have been exposed to levels of ignorance that are unsurpassed in our state. And when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about the concept of quarantining AIDS patients, which it seems it's no longer in vogue, but tell us about your experience with that. When we come back here on WFTL with Alan Turrell, our guest, the author of a basic guide for the non-lawyer, AIDS and the Law.
Florida's talk leader, AM 14, WFTL.
Hi, everybody. This is Norm Kent for Volume 1 Books in the New Sports Authority Center at 158 North University Drive at the northwest corner of University Drive and Pines Boulevard. I'm here with David, my college roommate.
Team WFTL at more with Storm and Norman Kent.
Alan, let me, if I could, before I even ask you about the quarantine issue, go to something that I found very troubling on the misinformation show that Rick Seidman broadcasts here every afternoon between 5 and 8. In his ignorance, he was pointing out, well, heart disease claims 500,000 people a year. AIDS has only claimed 250,000 in the United States. It's been around 10 or 11 years. That's only 23,000 a year. We only lost 23,000 this year, so not to worry. It's just a false alarm, an epidemic spread by the homosexual rights lobby, which they're trying to make the straight community think that they have something to worry about so they could get more funding for it. Now, that's the kind of ignorance and ignoramuses that we broadcast here at FTL on a regular basis. In fact, Rick has the airwaves 5 days a week. But you know what? It's great because he's a catalyst for people like you to come on and share some of the truths. Now, as I understand it, and you're the expert, you correct me, the AIDS virus has been going up geometrically and exponentially. That in January of 1990, there were 83,000 people that had died from the AIDS virus in the United States, but 7 months later, there were over 100,000. And then 6 months after that, it was over 140,000. And according to some recent statistics, more than that. So it's going up far more dramatically than at the rate of 20,000 a year, the same constant number, isn't it?
Well, the interesting aspect of the numbers, the sadly interesting aspect, is that they show, yes, a geometric progression. There's almost a doubling every 6 months to a year, and that demonstrates a frightening new infection rate. Yes, Mr. Siderman's got some statistics that have some measure of validity. We've got roughly 250,000 cases of full AIDS already. However, he's not looking at the fact that this is a long-term disease and that it takes years from the time that somebody becomes infected until that person would naturally die from the complications of AIDS, and that during that period there's an enormous drain on the economic resources, the healthcare resources of the country. AIDS has a projection of millions and millions of people dying of AIDS by the turn of the century. And in fact, whole countries in Africa are being wiped out.
Now Siderman has gone on the air and says, yes, but that was the same thing with polio. They had projections of thousands of people dying. But again, not to worry. We have we'll find a cure, we'll find a vaccine, and then your projections are nothing but alarmists.
I hope he's right. So far, that vaccine and that cure aren't in sight.
And as out of the International Conference on AIDS, we certainly find a higher degree of pessimism this year than in previous years. We seem to see that the virus is a peskier foe than we had previously thought. It is mutating far more rapidly, and less optimism amongst the professionals.
We're making medical progress by inches, and the virus is spreading by leaps and bounds.
Well, that's a good analogy. Are we over the stage nationally where people think it's necessary to quarantine patients?
Not quite. Again, we had an incident in Florida. It's been a few years now, but not that many. In Florida, we had a 14-year-old boy up in Pensacola who had the audacity to be aware of his own sexuality and was lurking around the club where some folks thought that he might be trying to sexually connect with someone. So the judge up there, the circuit court, put him into quarantine in the psychiatric ward of a state mental hospital, and that was just absolutely outrageous. The young man had done nothing overtly to even hint at transmission of the virus, but this was just pure prejudice and ignorance again.
Now, the flip side of a quarantine is that we are finding many healthcare professionals that do not want to treat AIDS patients. There was a report on CNN yesterday that Dr. Acker, if that's the correct name, Richard Acker, may have infected yet another patient who's just come forward. And, of course, you did write frequently about Kimberly Bergalis in your book. Where are we on that? What is Chapter 767 of Florida statute all about? Because there is some specific state law that covers what people may do when they find out an employee happens to have the HIV virus. I know you have a lawsuit pending right now in that regard concerning what was a
person who went to a dentist, was it?
Yes.
So why don't you share, for there's thousands of people out there, I'm sure that there are dentists and employers that just don't know what the law is on this.
Well, Florida law makes a number of provisions in terms of non-discrimination.
And this is something, folks, if you're listening, you should carefully take some notes on, because this is now mandated in the Florida statutes.
Yes. Florida law provides that people who have HIV disease have all the protections afforded under certain other civil rights laws already in place. For example, the Florida Fair Housing Act, which restricts landlords from discriminating on the basis of handicap, and also the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, a federal law that says folks who are recipients of federal financial assistance can't discriminate. Beyond that, the Florida law says that employers can't require an HIV antibody test as a condition of hiring or promotion or retention in the job unless being HIV negative is an essential element of the job, what the law calls a bona fide occupational qualification. And if I can finish this first, we can come back to that, and I want to tell you that in my opinion and in the opinion of most people who deal with this issue, there is no job for which being HIV negative is a bona fide occupational qualification.
Okay.
The law also provides that places of public accommodations are not allowed to discriminate, and we've traditionally thought of them as hotels, motels, restaurants, movie theaters, places of entertainment, but that's been expanded in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we can also get to. And the law in Florida provides that recipients of state financial assistance are not allowed to discriminate. Now, that's where you get to some of these medical professionals, dental professionals, because Medicaid is state financial assistance, and that's the hook that I used with a dentist in Lakeland. Earlier this year, I had a man who called me. He was a 5-year patient of this dentist, went in and said, I feel responsible to tell you that I've just been diagnosed with HIV disease, and you may want to take some extra precautions for me or for you, whatever you want to do that may be different. And the dentist then told him in Lakeland, you'll get your dental treatments from here on out at the dental clinic at the University of Florida in Gainesville. Now, that's hours and hours away, and that's absolute nonsense. That was a dentist who did accept Medicaid, state financial assistance. We filed suit, and yesterday a default was entered against the dentist, and we've won that case.
So to capsulize it, a dentist can't refuse to treat somebody because he learns that person is HIV positive.
A dentist who receives state financial assistance, Medicaid. If they take Medicare, then they probably are a recipient of federal financial assistance and are prohibited under the Rehabilitation Act. And under the new Americans with Disabilities Act, that concept of public accommodations has changed substantially. While we used to think of it as just the movie theaters and the hotels and motels and the lodges and the places of entertainment, we're now defining by statute in federal law public accommodations to include hospitals, doctors, dentists, virtually every kind of business imaginable, including lawyers, I point out quickly. And if the place of public accommodations, now that dentist or doctor, has 15 or more employees, then as of January 26th of this year, that business is bound by the non-discrimination laws in the Americans with Disabilities Act.
So what we have done by virtue of Chapter 767 of Florida statutes...
760, I got to correct you.
760, I'm sorry. What we have done with the numbers there, regardless of what the number is, what we have done is basically expand the empowerments and entitlements of individuals who are HIV positive and restrict people from discriminating against them.
Absolutely.
In all fashions of employment and occupations and positions and status in many ways.
Yes, and the bottom line is people with HIV disease and other handicapped people do have rights, and there are means in that statute to enforce them. It's not just a mild slap on the wrist. The damages are one's actual damages, or $1,000, whichever is greater, plus the court costs that are expended, plus the lawyer's fee, so there's incentive for lawyers to take the case. And if it's found to be intentional discrimination, as in the case of this dentist, then the damages are your actual damages, your measurable money damages, or $5,000, whichever is greater, plus your court costs, plus your attorney's fees, and whatever other relief the court will award. In that dental case, we've asked the court to require the dentist, anytime he practices, whether on his own or in someone else's office, to post a sign saying, "I do not discriminate on the basis of HIV disease," and you better believe he's not going to be happy about that.
I've got to tell you that one of the ironies in this, and you've been a leader in the gay rights movement here in Florida for many years as the director of the United Citizens for Human Rights. You've won a Lifetime Advocacy Award with the Dolphin Democratic Club. There's a well, whatever. You've won a lot of awards. Yes. There's a tremendous amount of irony in this new law. What it means in Fort Lauderdale or any community in South Florida is that a person who is gay can go to an apartment complex to make an application for a rental, and the landlord could turn to that person and say, "You know, I don't like your sexual preference. I'm not going to rent to you." And the person is out of luck because Broward County tried but failed to get an equal rights amendment for homosexuals passed. And it did not pass. It failed. And therefore a landlord may lawfully discriminate against an individual who's homosexual, who's healthy. Now, if that person goes ahead, follow me through on this, and after the break we'll try to answer this. If that person goes to a landlord and says, "I'm renting this place and I happen to be HIV positive," that landlord has to rent to him, because the landlord can't discriminate against somebody who's HIV positive.
You're absolutely right. Looking at an example, if the prospective tenant goes to the landlord can get away with saying, "I don't rent to no faggots," and that's usually the way it comes out.
Right.
But if the landlord says, "I don't rent to no faggots because they get AIDS," then the landlord's in trouble. And that's another aspect of the law I want to point out. It doesn't just apply to people who have AIDS or HIV infection. It applies to people who are perceived as being infected with HIV. So that if that word AIDS or HIV sneaks out while the landlord's venting prejudice against homosexuals, then you...
Storm and Norman on Florida's talk leader, AM 14 WFTL.
With you again on this very thoughtful conversation on AIDS, not trying to make it the political issue Rick Seidemann seems to do every time he gets somebody on. He tried to make the International Conference in Amsterdam an AIDS bashing session. Your opinion, Alan, on what George Bush has done about AIDS. You wouldn't make a future job for George Bush be an AIDS educator, would you?
No, I don't think that's exactly right for him. As the National AIDS Commission pointed out, they've made 30-some recommendations already, and absolutely none of them have been implemented. The president just doesn't understand the magnitude of this problem.
Your book, it's out. I have it in my hand. How does one get it?
Glad you asked that.
How do you know we've got an author on here?
I
see a toll-free number.
Yes, it's out from Hemisphere Publishing. It may or may not yet be in the area bookstores, but there is a toll-free 800 number. It's 1-800-821-8312. The book is by Alan Terrell, T-E-R-L, and if you just tell them AIDS and the Law, they'll know.
Well, now, local bookstores can order this directly from the 800 number and get a wholesale discount? Or
yes, they should be able to do that. They ought to go directly through there. And consumers can also call the 800 number direct. There's a little bit of a shipping charge that's involved with that. But it's out in both paperback and hardbound. The paperback runs $19.95. The hardbound is $45. And if you come to any one of my many public appearances, I'll be delighted to sign a copy over to you.
Well, let me tell you, as an attorney, even though it says the Basic Guide for the Non-Lawyer, I know attorneys. Now, I have that big red volume, AIDS and the Law, a legal manual, which is 2,000 pages and has all those pocket parts. When you have a quick legal problem that you need resolved, you don't want to have to turn necessarily to a 2,000-page manual. Something like this is very handy in a law office for attorneys that are out there.
It's extremely useful for attorneys. Virtually every sentence in the book is footnoted with documentation to standard AIDS litigation reporters so that the availability is there for attorneys. But what I've done is take the verbiage out of technical legalese and put it into plain English so that the law doesn't intimidate ordinary folks who want to understand these issues.
Let me see now, Al, about one of the more troubling things that happen on a regular basis with me in my office is the a frequency of calls, because people know me as a civil rights lawyer. What to do when a client gets AIDS? What kind of help can they get when they find out they're HIV positive? What kind of opportunities are there available to them? What kind of Medicare, Medicaid, social programs exist? You have, according to an article I just read in the Sun Sentinel, you have now had to deal with this personally. You have apparently contracted the AIDS virus, or the HIV virus. You've learned in the past few weeks that you're HIV positive. What are, aside from what you're going through emotionally as a result of this, what are you doing legally to protect your rights? Because that is the